less than a year. But do you think that the time we've had is indeed enough for people to see who is moving in the right direction?
For the ministers, okay, for the economy as a whole.
Yes,
for the economy as a whole, and for what the president is doing as a whole. 1 year, maybe two, short. Okay. I mean, because, for instance, our oil production, I mean, has improved tremendously. I mean, we're hovering around 1.7 million barrels per day now, apart from condensate, and a number of other things are going on. But for the ministers, you can see traction in some of the ministers. Some of the ministers, they have not performed up to standard. We must be clear in saying this. And the president, I mean, without, I don't want to start mentioning the ministers one after the other.
Yes.
But, for instance, I can measure some of the ministers that I think that have performed. I chaired the Senate Committee on ICT and Cybersecurity. So, for instance, I can see the Minister of Digital Economy. I can see the 3 million youth that are being trained on a daily basis. I can see that we're having a national strategy on IT, on artificial intelligence. If you also see the Minister of Interior, you can also see a few, development in terms of same thing with agriculture, same thing.
And well, those two that you just mentioned, those are sort of technology based, and that's your background.
That's how I want to limit my.
That's your background. So you can really evaluate what's been going on.
Because for me as well, one of the things that I also believe that we need to continue to do, and we're in the right direction. We are building national capacity now. We need to be very clear. Wealth of nations is no longer measured by the quantum of deposits you have in your hard cross. It's by the intellectual capital that your citizens carry. And that's why you can have citizens of this country, they can be resident here and they can be earning dollars. So you can see that the Minister of Communication and Digital Economy, we're training 3 million youth in modern technologies. Whether they are here, whether in any other place, they remain Nigerian assets. Okay? If you also see the way we also deploy technology in terms of passport management as an example, you could also see traction. In fact, it is my theory that the cost of governance, the corruption that we talk about so much, can be significantly reduced if you deploy more technology. And I'll give you a simple example. Some years ago, if you wanted to go to Abuja from Lagos, you would need to rush to the airport to buy your ticket, and you are going to meet a lot of touts waiting for you to help you buy ticket at a premium. But as we're speaking in this studio now, if I want to go to Abuja, here, I'll buy my ticket here, and I'll go.
Things are changing.
There used to be a time as well that even when you wanted to obtain a visa at the UK or US, you go to Water Currency and start queuing them at 4 a.m. But now you book your. The same thing we need to begin to do for some of our key business processes of government, so that government services could be more readily accessible to citizens at a lower cost.
And we're on the right track.
And we're on the right track in that direction. When you build it, when you finish building the capacity, you need to build the capacity of people who can deploy such technology. And then you need to begin to minimize the discretion available to government officials to determine whether to give you one service or the other. And that is at the core.
I suppose the most dramatic aspect, showing of that was by the Minister Pomiojo. And now it's just a couple of weeks to get a passport. And I don't know. It's surprising that he, from this administration, was able to do that, which goes back to the choice of men that Tinubu chose. How could he 204,000 outstanding passports he said he met when he came? How could he sort that out in 2.5 weeks?
Two things. Number one, I also believe that leadership matters.
Yes.
If a herd of sheep is being led by a lion, everybody will see the entire thing as a lion, as a herd of lions. If on the other hand, you also have lions, all lions being led by a sheep, the other side will see them as being sheep. So I think the first thing is I think the president himself has given a very clear indication of performance, starting with come and sign a performance bond with me. And I'm going to measure you with that. And I also think the second thing is that also the individual ministers also bring what they have. We're talking about a minister. By the way, the minister was also a member of National Assembly. So we're also proud to say he was one of us before he went to the executive branch of government. I also think the other side to it as well is himself as an individual. He also listens to the hues and cries of Nigerians to say, this is no rocket science. And when you are determined to make a change, you can make that change. So a number of other ministers have also performed. I mean, this is not the time to extradite the ministers. I'll probably have the opportunity to do so as a member of the Senate when the Senate is doing sectoral review. But generally, we've had a lot of tractions by some of the ministers. And some of the other ministers, they have not found their footing. They have been anonymous, so to say. And I believe in this 1 year, the man who has appointed them, who they report to, will possibly have a better understanding of why some of them have not, to the public satisfaction deliver. You probably understand what they are constrained. You probably understand what their challenges are. But looking from outside, we can say, oh yes, quite a large number, maybe a higher number of our ministers are performing because they're also taking care.
Exactly. But on a scale of balance, given what we've seen now, quite a lot has been positive, encouraging. Not all, as in any human endeavor. But with that, moving into the second year, this probably gives reason for hope because this president has already indicated that he's a man, in fact, he's primed himself, his administration in a way where there can be constant reviews. There are all sorts of innovations, and then reviewing, because of the mechanism that he has set up, this sort of leads to one having a sort of a positive hope, hope for into the next year it's going to be better, much better.
I have no doubt about that. A number of the initiatives that are taking place now, they will begin to materialize more. For instance, the government has set up a presidential committee to harmonize taxes. When you reduce, as we speak, I understand we have close to 90 taxes. If those taxes are harmonized and brought to a reasonable number, and then the businesses have less taxes to contend with, it means the cost of production will be improved. By the way, even in the energy sector, we can see some traction in electricity. It has not been as manifest as we thought it should be, but don't forget that our German chancellor, they signed a contract with Siemens to deploy some electricity. I even understand that about a month ago, we had one of the highest generation of electricity, over 5,000 megawatts, generated, transmitted, and distributed. We also have some other initiatives that are going on in electricity. By the time we are approaching middle of next year, some of these things will materialize. We'll see improvement in energy sector. The oil production that has improved will lead to more foreign exchange earning for the country. So I am extremely hopeful that the glass of Nigeria, the cup of Nigeria is half full and not half empty. So in the meantime, Nigerians, again, we must continue to thank Nigerians for their patience, for their resilience, because at the end of the day, they bear the brunt of some of these reforms. But what is important to know that this is being done for the long-term development, long-term sustainability of our economic growth. And you also see some traction in terms of, I have stayed away from causing statistics. But even in terms of GDP growth, we have seen some traction in terms of GDP growth. But we can't be talking about that when we say have hyperinflation to contend with, when the cost of food items is still very high, when the cost of transportation is still very high. But I have no doubt that some of those things will taper down as we approach the end of the year, and the implementation of 2024 budget is in full swing, and we can see a number of infrastructure projects that are going on. When some of those things, just about 2 days ago, the president commissioned, the railway station, the Abuja Metropolis, railway. When you begin to put all those infrastructure in place, they ease the cost of transportation, invariably they reduce the cost of production, and even the living costs for the people. So let's just say, I share your optimism, extreme optimism that things are looking up north for the country.
Okay. Just to put you on, sort of inform you, we're cutting away, because there's a live event, I'll be able to tell you exactly where, but as you know, you can always, link up with us again on YouTube to continue with the program. That's for viewers on the terrestrial service, but our viewers in diaspora, we're still together, as it were. So, as you were saying, we're still live and we're still going out, but a live crew is going off to an event that I can't tell you anything about, as a matter of fact, but the event probably has happened now. So, we're looking at 1 year of the Tinubu administration. There's much reason for hope. The renewed hope mantra he came in on, we've seen aspects of it, but it's also been a very difficult year. There's no way you can,
Absolutely.
there's no way you sort of can dress it up. And Nigerians are just hoping that sooner rather than later, the worst will be behind us. But the monumental things that have happened, you've enumerated some of them. You're looking at the students' loan aspect. That is something that has not happened before, where you don't need to know anybody. That's one aspect to it. You actually don't need to know
and technology is going to drive that as well.
Indeed, all of these are.
So the student loan application process, the criteria for, and we have seen this, it's not a rocket science. An example, and I would like to give this example. We have seen what a federal agency use technology and right mix of leadership to achieve. And I'm talking about Joint Admission and Matriculation Board as an example, JAMB. This is a federal government agency. Somebody also decided to use that as a model of what is possible with federal agencies.
Okay.
So I think we're on that track, and I think we need to continue to use technology to reduce the cost of governance, make governance. People need to have easy access to obtain passport, driving license. When some of those things
just move into the digital age as other countries. Let me bring, I beg your pardon, a viewer has called in. Good morning, Mr. George. Thank you for holding on a bit.
Good morning, Gary.
Thank you for calling in.
Good morning to our guest.
The Senator, Senator Salisu.
Yes. Uncle, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yeah, Uncle Yeri, the last time we spoke, I expressed my reservations about the Minister of Agriculture, and I said I was going to listen to his scorecard he was going to present.
Yes.
And I did listen.
Yes.
I did listen, and I was surprised to see some of the things he was doing, which I can give him an average score. But we need ministers that perform above average. That average score. My concern is that the government is not talking. The Buhari government suffered from the same thing, doing things and people are not aware. The way the election of 2023 went and the way politics has been taken to social media, those who did not win want to get Nigeria down because they cannot have it. They are creating false narratives and, to gullible Nigerians. The government needs to do something about it. If I were the president, I would copy from what the Americans are doing. Every day there should be press briefing by a special assistant to the president for that purpose, giving account of what the government is doing to counter the misinformation that is there in the social media. Some people are doing it deliberately to run Nigeria down because they cannot have it. It was the same thing that the current president in America did. You know how Donald Trump won the election that he won? Through the social media misinformation. But when this man managed to come, he now adopted a system where every day, whatever has been misdirected to people on the social media, the government will clarify it. You don't allow it to sink because the population is still a little or even much gullible. That's my candid advice for Mr. President.
Well,
I want to give him kudos. So far, so good. We are moving, and we shut up praising ourselves. The ministers that, you remember that I was propagating some names before they were appointed. I'm happy the government, the president picked some of them, and the ones he picked have not disappointed me.
Indeed.
I'm very, very proud.
All right, then. Thank you very much, Mr. George, for calling in. Appreciate your call. I'll take a break now so that we can continue with this with less interruptions. Stay with us, please. We'll be right back.
Business lives on the fast track of numbers. Business is a strange world where low numbers mean something different. And its currency are speed and time. Finding the open doors of Main Street is not just good business, it's the start of the business. Join us every weekend on Business Week.
There is always more to a story than the screaming headline. The part of a story that is not told casts a shadow. It's like the part of an object that is not reached by light. On TVC News, I'm able to explore the many angles there are to a story, talking to stakeholders, asking the difficult questions, and digging for facts. I believe the viewers are able to make a better decision if they're well informed and understand not just a part, but the complete story. TVC News, first with breaking news.
Okay, welcome back. And our guest this morning is Senator Shuaib Afolabi Salihu. He's the Senate Committee Chair on Media and Publicity. He represents Ogun Central.
I sit on cybersecurity. I'm vice chair of media.
Okay, and cybersecurity. Yeah. And this quite frankly, IT is your whole area, your whole background before going, for higher service. Okay, let me just take that last caller, George, who called in from Ikeja. His observation was that he's happier with what they do in other dispensations, political climes, where there's a daily briefing on what's going on. And so people cannot say that they don't know what's going on. And so whatever goods are being done,
I like to thank
political opponents.
I like to thank George who called earlier. I think I can't put more succinctly than he did. Mm-hmm. We have a situation where somebody is working day in, day out, but he is not communicating what he's doing with the rest of the people. And when the economic team was invited by the Senate, one of my major highlights, one of the things I asked them is, you need to go out there and communicate more effectively to our people. The people are not getting the communication, and that's why the narrative has been shaped by the naysayers, so to say. I mean, the same people I mentioned to you earlier, those who campaign on the basis we're going to remove subsidy, we're going to remove this multiple, even opposition candidates. They came around now and said, no, this thing is inflicting pains. Whoever told you that reform will not come with some pains? But you just mentioned the Minister of Agriculture. The man he's doing a lot of fantastic job. Maybe like other ministers, maybe they're not communicating very well. I mean, as we speak to you, there's an agri intervention fund to deepen our development in agriculture. If you also look at mineral resources, solid mineral resources, a lot is being done to also focus on that as a source of foreign exchange earning for the country. But I don't think those who were supposed to communicate this are doing so. But we must also recognize one fact. Those who don't have responsibility for governance, they have enough time on their hand to do mischief. Those who have responsibility for governance, they focus on governance, they're doing the right thing they're supposed to be doing. But those who don't have responsibility for governance, they have enough time to sell negative narratives. Nonetheless, the Yoruba people, they have a proverb. If you are roasting groundnut for someone who is blind, you must be whistling. The man will think, as you are roasting, you are putting the groundnut in your mouth. But while you are whistling, you know that the groundnut you are roasting is for him, and that you are not eating it yourself. The same way, I think the government needs to communicate more regularly, more clearly. Nigerians, we understand your pain. This and this are what we are doing. Those of us who are sufficiently...
I wonder if that point is across the board, by which I mean the presidency is one segment of that particular issue, and then the different agencies of government doing what they are doing is another. So all of this, doesn't it come under the orbit of the information ministry?
Well, it's not just about information ministry, okay? You know what the ministerial briefings that we're having now, like the caller will just call in now and say, oh, I had a low estimation of what the Minister of Agriculture was doing until I listened to him. Now they have done 1 year. What I expect is that they shouldn't wait for another 1 year to brief us. Those ministers, every quarter, because we're in a war situation. And when we're in a war situation, when a war situation, let's make no mistake about that. We're in a war situation in terms of the economy, in terms of cost of living, in terms of inflation, in terms of insecurity. A lot of traction is also being gained in each and every one of these directions. But people do not know. If people don't know what we are doing in agriculture, as an example, and a lot is being done in agriculture. I mean, 42,000 metric tons of food was released from the reserve initially. Additional 60,000 was reserved. As we speak now, we are having a lot of initiatives, including agri fund. It's not limited to agriculture. If you also look at the energy sector, if you look at, I've spoken about technology, all of these ministries are doing wonderful things. But then we are not hearing enough of them. I mean, we hear because we are senators, because we relate with them. But we're talking about the generality of the
public out there.
When the information is communicated, people's mind will at least be at rest to say, oh, our government is working for us. We know these pains are temporary. We know the gains are almost around the corner. We can see the silver lining on the horizon. Therefore, if they are asking us to be patient, we know this patience has a time span. But if you are doing all of this for us, and we do not have a full appreciation of what we are doing, then the mischief makers will take off the narrative and say, no family head.
Well, they probably...
And a president is a family head.
Indeed.
A governor is a family head. No family head will want to deliberately inflict pains on his family members.
They're probably hearing it now, loud and clear, especially on this event, this 1 year mark that has brought all of this out. And it's been quite a while that the public has sort of been bemoaning the dearth of information. That we don't know what's going on, and it might well be that a lot that is commendable.
And also challenge the media as well.
Indeed, to dig a bit more.
Your role.
Let me come back to you because I have a guy on the phone. I'll come back to that point. Mazi Okoroafo in Arochukwu, good morning to you, sir.
Sayori, good morning, sir. Good morning, I guess.
Yes.
Good morning.
Sayori, the 1 year is something what? At least today in Nigeria, the educational sectors, the youth will not say they have been left behind. The poor or the downtrodden will not, because I was looking at national debt this morning. I was just looking about the number of people that have registered for this student loan. At least there is need for the federal government, in as much as they said state institutions should also participate. And there is need too for the authorities concerned to go and upload the names of people in that state institutions. But I still call on the government too. They should also consider some of these private schools. You know, there are what we call ABCD, brand of private schools, higher institutions. There are the poor ones there. Because some of them, not that because they don't, because of the distance, or because of security, because of all it is, made them to go there. They are not finding it easy to take care of them. If you look around, I see that there are some of Nigerians that got the opportunity of traveling out of Nigeria. because of exchange rate, they have problem in terms of payment. And thank God that the federal government has just issued yesterday or yesterday that they will look into it to make sure that the British government not extended our Nigerian students to come back to it because they cannot pay their money. This is also a problem. So not only outside Nigeria, but here in Nigeria to discuss, the private sector today should also consider not only higher institutions, even our secondary schools, if they can tell the government to encourage them, make sure that those ones, they are ready to learn and they have knowledge. In short, the IP is very high because of financial aspect. The problem, honestly, education, I'm just going to education only this morning. Let the government see how they can do about the education sector so that the third tier of government should make sure government should like the government is moving forward now about to make sure the local government autonomy stands. But if you check very well, the local government authority went into bastardism because the 7th, 8th, 9th House Assembly, destroyed it. They were told to give approval to all these local governments. They refused. Now look at what is happening now. The basic education is that state government, this is primary school, but because of the aggrandizing with the state House Assembly members, now, they destroyed it now. Look at what is happening now. That is what some states students cannot go to school because the teachers will not pay. Infrastructure facility in primary school is not there because the thought is, honestly speaking, federal government should insist whether the judge or judges know that are handling this case about the third tier. The governor should remove their hand from the third tier government expenditure and just the money.
Okay, Mazi. All right, Mazi. Thank you very much, Mazi. Mazi is passionate about education, actually.
It's not just education what he has spoken. What he has spoken about is a metaphor for a number of things. Number one, I was saying the media should also need to do more. The federal government has approached the Supreme Court to give effect to the intent of the Constitution that local government is an autonomous third tier of government. The media have not seen this in the media being spoken, being talked about, being
put onto front page material.
Because we must begin to look at what worked in the past for us. What worked in the past for us was that subnationals were sufficiently empowered to carry out their responsibilities. He spoke about education. I am a product of a local government primary education system. The secondary school education I also had was public school. In fact, my university education, University of Lagos, was also public education. Okay, gradually, the local governments local governments were no longer in position to fund the primary education. We created the Universal Basic Education Commission in order to have first-line charge, in order to support it. All of these interventions as a result of a failure of the system. Now, so we need to talk about local government economy. We also need to talk about education. Two things during our foreign exchange: education and medical tourism.
Indeed, those two.
Those are the two things. Meaning that, and in these are also opportunities for Nigerian entrepreneurs, because people send their children abroad for education because they think the quality of education here is substandard. It means that if you're an entrepreneur and you establish schools here, rather than people flying abroad to have the education they can have. Same thing with medical tourism. Now, okay, you know one thing that will be interesting is that even as we speak, some people travel to Nigeria to have some medical procedures. Even as we speak.
Even as we speak.
Even as we speak. I mean.
Okay, I'll come back to you, but I'm holding Ada up in Jos. Apologies for that, Ada. Good morning to you. Okay. Please go ahead now.
Okay.
Please go on now.
Yes, good morning.
Thank you very much.
Your guest, very nice, Senator Salif.
Yes.
Good morning, Ada.
Ada calling from those Plateau states. If you remember very well, I was among those that advocated for the removal of fuel subsidy. I remember when one of your guests, or your experts, Salazar, was there, he featured. I remember very well. That day, I was even one of those who said you should remove that subsidy, And when you removed it, that Tinubu removed it, I was one of those who also said, because people are saying that why should it be on that day? I said, there's no other day, any other way you could have said it, and it will work in Nigeria, because that's the only way to get out of it, But I thought President Tinubu, knowing him as a strategist, he had prepared for it. Because I remember very well, Bala Zakat warned that if there's no preparation for the removal of this subsidy, it's going to bring untold hardship. And I keep on remembering it as what is happening now. Now, the palliative he has been given is not working, especially this sharing of money. And it's a restricted group. But the way things are, maybe they don't even understand what is happening. More than 85% of Nigerians, even myself, I thought it to you now, have gone into that poverty group. And we're excluded from all these palliatives, That's why it's not working. So the only palliative now is like, assuming the CNG buses were available and it is with the state, and we have, transportation is cut down, and we can just park our cars the way we have been parking it for some time now, and join those buses, and then the refinery starts working. Dangote refinery started working, but there's no hope there again because he doesn't even have enough crews. He can't get enough crews because of oil theft. So what kind of a country are we running? Why can't they stop that the oil theft, and they make sure they give Dangote enough crews so he won't be importing from America again, It doesn't make sense. Then the government, of the day, and the senators, they're not even helping matters the way they are going about these issues. They should pursue it rigorously to get things, get us out of this poverty. And Tinubu is so lucky. We are all cooperating, not like on the streets, Then he shouldn't push his block too far.
Indeed.
The hunger in the hand is so much so, maybe it's not biting you. It's hard. Look at the Gary. 8 cups of Gary. 8 cups of Gary is, we used to call it in the northern parlance, Moody. That is 8 cups. It's 1,500 for the white one. Then the yellow one is 1,008. I couldn't afford the yellow one again. So I had to make do with the white one, For how long will you continue like this?
How long? Thank you very much, Ada, for calling in. Appreciate your call. Again, these are some of the things we're talking about.
I can relate to what you said. And Ada, I relate very clearly with what you have said. And I have said so even on this one over and over again. The pains are
real.
However, one of the things that she said that's also a bit comforting, no one has ever said, and I've listened to economists, I've listened to pundits, I've listened to everyone. No one has ever said removal of first subsidy was a wrong policy decision.
No, even as said so. She said, and we're all cooperating.
We are cooperating.
The
only challenge is,
much as the pains are.
We haven't seen enough palliatives. When you are coming over to take up a company, from outside you could see a number of things that are wrong. I can say, certainly this is wrong. But you may not know the extent of wrath. And what the government has done is, we need to take this decision. They've taken a decision. We need to manage the consequences of this decision. And part of the consequences is what we are saying. And she mentioned CNG. Again, this is also one of the achievements of Bola Tinubu. I'm saying that's also unsung. We are transiting from fossil fuel to CNG. CNG is a lot cheaper to run. It's even safer. And the federal government and the state government, subnationals are working on that. For instance, Ogun State, my state now, runs some buses on CNG, meaning that the cost of running those buses, is reduced. It also has, more security, safety valves than the other ones. But as I mentioned to you, unless and until people are able to buy their yellow Gari or their white Gari,
as they want.
Some of these things will still remain mere statistics for them. And I thank him for what she said. We're cooperating with the government.
Indeed.
But you also know that you have a government that is very clear-headed. There's a clarity as to where we are going. There are challenges along the line. We do not have a telescope to tell us exactly how every inch of the way will be. But what we have is that at every inch of the way, we will demonstrate leadership. We will address it as we come across it. We will take our way. We will be nimble enough to say, this is not working. Let us try this one.
Let me squeeze in Kesandu here, who has called in from Owerri. Good morning to you, sir.
God bless you, Uncle Yori, and good morning to your guest.
Thank you.
Uncle Yori, let me say that one of the best gifts President Bola Tinubu has given to Nigerians is this suit filed against the state government at the Supreme Court. We are so proud of it, and I want to say that we citizens are not giving him the maximum support he needs in that particular pursuit, because the Latin says, non si bis sed omnibus, not for one but for all. This is not for him. It is for Nigerians, because this is what we have actually cried for. This is where our yearnings and aspiration rest on this. We all know the importance of the local government system. It's independent. I want to tell Mr. President that the federal government applies that we, the people, are solidly behind it. And I want civil society organizations. We must surround Mr. President on this particular suit. Every citizen of this country, this is the time to show great support, because this thing is going to not just we understand the importance of the local government system, even to the poorest of the poor. This is the government that can actually take care of the person that Mr. President does not know. And Mr. President has shown leadership and capacity to do this. I want to...
Thank you, Kesandu.
I am suggesting...
We completely run out of time, but thank you very much. Quite frankly, we've used up our time, but it's a very important point that Kesandu brings up.
The president was an advocate of true federalism. He demonstrated that as governor of Lagos State. He has taken the step again by approaching the Supreme Court to say, hey, there's a third-tier government.
Yes. And
we must allow them to function. And by the way, the removal of first subsidy and a number of these other initiatives are also making more money available to the subnationals. So as we focus on federal government, we must also begin to also focus on subnationals and to ask questions as to what are the subnationals doing with increased revenue flow from the federal down, from the national treasury down to the subnationals.
We've completely run out of time, but as you said earlier, there's a lot more to look forward to in the coming years, given what we are able to see now. I want to thank you very much, Senator, for coming on.
I'd like to thank you as well. I'd also like to thank Nigerians. Keep focused with the president, and I'm sure the president is also listening. We need to also increase our communication to our people. We need to tweak our palliatives to ensure that the immediate pain that people feel now, the immediate pains, we also do something about it. And as members of National Assembly, we will stand with, we will work with, and ensure that the president succeeds in his Renew Hope agenda and Nigeria benefits.
That's a fine place at which to leave it. Thank you very much. Okay, that's our program. Join us on Monday for a fresh edition. I am Iyori Folani. Do have a great weekend. Bye-bye for now.
Business lives on the fast track of numbers. Business is a strange world where low numbers means something different. In its currency are speed and time. Finding the open doors of Main Street is not just good business, it's the start of the business. Join us every weekend on Business Week.
There is always more to a story than the screaming headline. The part of a story that is not told casts a shadow. It's like the part of an object that is not reached by light. On TVC News, I'm able to explore the many angles there are to a story, talking to stakeholders, asking the difficult questions, and digging for facts. I believe the viewers are able to make a better decision if they're well informed and understand not just a part, but the complete story. TVC News, first with breaking news.
Albert Chinua Achebe was born November 16, 1930 in Ogidi, Nigeria. He went to Government College in Umuahia, Nigeria. In 1948, Achebe won a scholarship to the University of Ibadan to study medicine. But after a year, he changed his major to writing. After graduation in 1953, he became a scriptwriter for the Nigerian Broadcasting Service (NBS), eventually becoming the head programmer for the discussion series. In 1956, he visited London for the first time to take a training course with the BBC. On returning, he moved to Enugu and edited and produced stories for the NBS. Achebe was unhappy with books about Africa written by British authors such as Joseph Conrad and John Buchan because he felt the descriptions of African people were inaccurate and insulting. In his spare time, he worked on Things Fall Apart. The novel was published in 1958. The book won immediate international recognition and also became the basis for a play. His second book, No Longer at Eve, published in 1960, is set in the last decade before Nigeria achieved independence. In 1961, Chinua Achebe met and married Christiana Chinua and they eventually had 4 children. The third book in the African trilogy, Arrow of God, was published in 1964. Achebe published his 4th novel, A Man of the People, in 1966. The novel tells the story of the widespread corruption of Nigerian politicians and ends in a military coup. During the Biafra conflict, Achebe's house was bombed and his friend Christopher Achebe was killed. Achebe and his family went into hiding in Biafra and then fled to Britain for the duration of the war. From 1972 to 1976, Achebe held the visiting professorship in African literature at the University of Massachusetts at Amherst. After that, he returned again to teach at the University of Nigeria. He became chair of the Association of Nigerian Writers.
Hello, thanks for joining us. This is TVC News this hour. We are monitoring development in the southeast following the declaration of a cease-at-home order by the indigenous people of Biafra. 2 soldiers are found dead at a patrol vehicle burnt on Thursday as gunmen enforced the cease-at-home order in Abia. Our correspondent there, Nina Gabriel, brings us details.
Look at it now. Look at soldiers running. This is what is happening live now. Obikaba Junction.
This video, as sourced from the internet, showed that the gunmen dressed in black shirts and trousers with hoods to shield their faces attacked the army outpost at about 10 a.m. on Thursday. A resident of the area told TVC News that residents of Umuola, Ukebu and Obikabia now live in fear following the incident. According to the source, many have started leaving their houses for fear of any reprisal by the soldiers. Aba and Umuahia, the state capital, were without their usual hustling and bustling in the 2 busy cities in the state. Banks, offices, markets were closed in adherence to the sit-at-home order of the indigenous people of Biafra. At the time of filing this report, police helicopter and military aircraft were sighted hovering around the city center following the ugly incident. The Nigerian Army 14th Brigade headquarters are yet to issue official statement over the attack on their men in Aba. Nina Gabriel, TVC News, Aba, Abia State.
And reactions are now trailing the killing of soldiers in Abia State. The chairman of the Southeast Governors Forum and Governor of Imo State, Hope Uzodinma, has condemned in strong terms the act, stating that the attack is likely to slow down the peace process in the region. He has described the attack as barbaric and asked security operatives to go all out to fish out the perpetrators and bring them to justice.
Condemn that, and also to urge security agents to go all out and ensure that those behind that are caught and be brought to book. It's unfortunate that this happened without any reason. So innocent people who are doing their lawful duty were gunned down. And the unfortunate thing is that this is going to act as a major setback to the peace process which the governors from Southeast has been pursuing, been talking to federal government, been talking to security agencies and other critical stakeholders on how best to resolve the problem of insecurity in the Southeast.
And in the nation's capital, military authorities have cautioned members of the public against mob attacks on troops. Director of Defense Media Operations, Major General Edward Buba, addressed a news conference where he advised citizens to report erring military personnel rather than lynch them. Sifonesian reports.
Mob attacks on army personnel are giving cause for concern to the military authorities. From the Okwama Delta State incident to Abuja's Banex Plaza, the military authorities are worried that such attacks pose setbacks to civil-military relations.
Go to our hospitals. You see many amputees. You see many with scars of war. All for our nation. All to protect the citizens. We do not want those with PTSD coming to express themselves and hurting innocent civilians. It has happened in other crimes. This is the last thing that we want to hear.
He advises members of the public to report erring military personnel to the authorities rather than lynch them.
If our troops err, report them. Be mindful of your utterances and be mindful of your actions. Because like I said, and I'll repeat, it's counterproductive and self-sabotage.
Beyond this, troops on the front lines killed 624 terrorists, arrested 1,051 others, including their logistics suppliers and informants, and rescued 563 hostages. Sifon Asian, TVC News, Abuja.
And now the National Assembly, where the House of Representatives Committee on Environment has given the Minister of Environment and the Director General of the National Emergency Management Agency the last opportunity to appear before it or risk summon. National Assembly correspondent Joke Adisa has details.
Environmental crisis resulting from gully erosion is prevalent in the southeastern region of Nigeria. Experts worry that degradation has not only depleted the vast fertile land for agriculture, but has also impacted infrastructure such as roads, buildings, and ultimately caused displacement of communities. The adverse impact of gully erosion in several communities across Anambra, Bayelsa, Delta, Lagos, and Ondo states, as well as the desertification disaster in Kano and the flooding disaster in Bauchi State, is the task before this committee.
We are gradually coming to the end.
At its resumed sitting, the committee says it is not getting the desired support from key government officials to be able to forge ahead in its assignment.
In line with our legislative agenda of embarking on legislative processes and legal frameworks to address environmental challenges, the House resolved to respond urgently to the menace in the communities to stem the ugly tide.
A visibly angry chairman on behalf of the committee directs the clerk to invite the affected persons again for the last time.
Within our committee, National Assembly, by extension, the constituents, there are people are constituents, a huge favor for crying out very loud for you to hear. So it is time that we query the states and local governments on their utilization of this fund. The fund was put in place with specific objective, and is expected it should be used for that purpose. So it's time that we start asking questions. What states and local governments do with their portion? A total of 1.32% of the fund.
In the thinking of the committee, the issues at hand are of urgent concern as they affect the well-being of Nigerians. It therefore calls on the Minister of the Environment, Director General of NEMA, and others so invited to cause appearances to enable the safety of lives of the citizens. Jokeyatsa, TVC News, Abuja.
President Bola Tinubu has appealed to state government to prioritize the needs of local communities by ensuring accountability and effectiveness in the administration of local government. The president said this at a meeting with the leadership of Arewa Consultative Forum at the Presidential Villa in Abuja. On security, President Tinubu commended the National Security Advisor for his efforts as he emphasized the need to invest more in technology to properly guarantee the safety of lives and property.
Thank you very much for listening. I'm doing my best to improve the revenue of the country and giving them their due. But they must equally be sympathetic to the populace, and they must consider the need of the local people. People reside in the local government. We have 774 local government. It's just a number. Is it effective? Is it reaching the real people?
Meanwhile, the Academic Staff Union of Universities is proposing stiffer penalties for erring taxpayers in the country. This comes on a day the House Committee Tertiary Education Trust Fund summoned some commercial banks over alleged under-remittance of education tax to the fund. National Assembly correspondent Joke Adisa reports.
Underfunding is still the major problem, slowing down the growth and development of tertiary institutions and a source of acrimony between unions and the authorities. Since 1999, Nigeria has had no less than 15 semesters, which is 66 months of academic interruption due to issues relating to finance. Government's effort at addressing the funding gap led to the creation of TET Fund in 2011. Registered companies in Nigeria are to pay 2% education tax from their accessible profit.
I want to appreciate.
In the last 13 years, the fund has not been able to perform optimally due to an alleged failure of commercial banks to play their role as outlined. This is the order before the Committee on TET Fund.
The banks seem to be relying on a purported exemption order which clearly mentioned companies' income tax. We have asked the banks to produce the education tax exemption order, and they have failed to present it.
ASU has always complained about deteriorating infrastructure in the universities and unmet demands relating to welfare. It insists tax defaulters should be held accountable.
Why should the president approve a waiver for banks not to pay some tax? And this is the sector of the industry that makes so much profit on a yearly basis.
7 of the 15 banks being investigated were expected to show up here, but only 3 had representatives. A representative of First Bank, Bashir Yusuf, told the lawmakers that between 2011 and 2022, the bank posted a profit before tax of 795.123 billion naira.
There are certain categories of income that are exempt from tax. Some of them include short-term federal investment income.
But the committee identified some discrepancies in the figures.
If there is anything that is important to any Nigerian today is the education of our children. So if you are invited to come in and discuss on how we can advance and develop education, I think it must be taken seriously by every Nigerian.
The noticeable irregularities in the figures forced the committee to summon the chief executives of all banks earlier invited. Joke Adisa, TVC News, Abuja.
And you still on to TVC News this hour. Be back with more stories after this break. Stay with us.